You have to appreciate MJF's commitment to being MJF. He ain't too old for nothing. Yeah. He is at the right time, at the right place, and I pray for him that they see it. But he is such an amazing athlete and entertainer and like daredevil.
There's no one better that I'd rather be sitting down with for episode number 500.
This is your 500 show.
Episode number 500.
So how many was it when I showed up at your door? Well, how many? Well, like way back then, what would that have been?
The show hadn't even started yet. So I was doing the YouTube channel. I was doing the YouTube channel, but the podcast didn't start till 2019. We met in 2018, but I was thinking 500 is a huge number, right?
Huge.
A big milestone.
100's a big number.
Absolutely. 10's a big number in these days.
Yeah.
But I was like, who would I rather sit down with and spend some time with for, episode number 500? And it's you, my friend.
I appreciate that, man.
I love you, and the fact that we're here in your house. Thank you.
And you came in for Cody's. They're doing a little premiere for him.
Yeah.
For his documentary, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And you text me and said, am I going to be there? I go, you're just staying with me. Yeah, just come on in and crash with us.
The fact that you're so hospitable is there's so many things about you and your wife, Paige, that I love and I admire, but the fact that you are so welcoming it's one of your best traits.
Oh, dude, we're just being ourselves. And anybody we care about, I just literally invited Matt Hardy, who I love. And I always see him he's got a gorgeous family. He's got all those little babies, beautiful wife. I mean, he has a beautiful life.
Yeah.
And I know that he's still working, and he does. I just text him saying, are you still doing the program? And this is what I loved. He said, I've developed what you taught me into me doing it without, I don't need the app anymore.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, yes, that is my goal for each and every person, especially that's if they're one of the boys or one of the girls, because I give it to all of them. I'll give it to any NFL players, anybody who's made it. And now their body is their life.
Yeah.
And I look at Maddie and it was beautiful. There's this beautiful family. And I'm like, bro, if you ever really want to come here and by yourself, with your brother, with your wife, whatever, and just, you've seen all the stuff I have, all the anti-aging stuff.
Yeah.
And
you put me through it.
The gauntlet, which I would also love to put Matt through. But it just would help, again, always looking for the way to hold back the hands of time.
Yeah.
And that's what really, because Matt Hardy is such a great entertainer. Can he keep doing it forever? Look at Sting. Stinger's still going, but he's finally going to retire at 64. But, it's all about how you live after the business. And for me, at 67, that's my biggest example I always want to set. Like, look what I'm doing. Look at me now. Mm-hmm. I don't look like your average 67-year-old or even 57-year-old. And I can do a lot of different things because of this. It's not just DDP yoga. It's not just the food. It's not just the ice plunge. It's not just the oxygen deprivation. It's everything.
Yeah.
Chiropractic, deep muscle massage, everything. And that's what I try to share. When I see someone I really care about, like Matt, and I say, God, man, got all these beautiful babies, and I just had to reach out to him and say, whenever, consider it an open invitation.
Yeah.
You ever want to come? You've stayed. Like, what's it like staying at this place?
You have a mansion here. Let's be honest. But you're just so welcoming, and you're like, I've got 5 king beds upstairs. Just pick whichever one you'd like to sleep in.
Paige,
your wife put a gift bag on my bed.
She does it for everyone.
It's unbelievable.
She does it for everyone.
Well, one of the words you said in there, I want to key in on. You said you give it, and that's such a big thing for you. You are so giving. Have you always been this way?
Yeah, pretty much. When I was in a nightclub business, because I love the nightclub business, it was so much fun. It's kind of ironic that I've helped so many people get sober with my program too, which is kind of crazy. But way back in the day, every Christmas it was always, Toys for Tots or anybody who needed something that if a family reached out to me, we'd do a thing and a door would go to them, whatever we collected that night or whatever. So there's always something that we were doing like that, but I never really even thought about it. Just like, to me, when you're like what I'm doing today with the program and helping so many different people, it's the best karma in the world. It's like I use it all up with my driving. God takes all my saves me. God is my co-pilot. And Lex had to correct me. God is no one's co-pilot. But for me, I feel like God is watching over me when I'm driving, stone cold sober. I think I'm a really good driver, but nobody else does.
It's interesting because the wrestling business and a lot of people in the wrestling business are not usually outwardly giving. It's a lot of times it's like, look at me and look what I'm doing. You're the complete opposite of so many people in this industry.
Well, it's so hard when you're trying to come up and you're trying to get noticed. I mean, that wrestling is the world of look at me. Mm-hmm. Let me push your buttons. Like I personally know Max MJF, and he'd be pissed off at me for saying this, but he's the nicest guy. He really is. To me, but everybody, he's out and open, he's an asshole. Yeah. And it's not him being an asshole. It's him living the gimmick. Mm. He could turn babyface in an instant, and he would be over even bigger, I think. But as a heel, oh my God. One of my favorite MJF stories. I was on, and I'll give Chris Jericho the Jericho Cruise, which is amazing. If you haven't done it and you're thinking about doing the Jericho Cruise, do it. I did a couple of them, and I love Chris Jericho. There's another GOAT. I mean, capital G-O-A-T. I mean, like big time. But one of the comedians was up on stage, and it's a packed house, that particular night. And I can't remember his name, but he said, you have to really appreciate MJF's commitment to being the character. He's never out of character. My buddy and I, we love him. We love to listen to him. So we're waiting online. He's charging more than anyone. I don't know if it's a particular moment, but I remember there was a point of charging for autographs, and MJF, when he was nobody, put himself at like $150.
That's right, yeah. And people were paying it.
And they paid it, which was brilliant.
But it was also part of the gimmick, right?
Yes.
Of like, I'm such an asshole.
Yes. And I don't give a fuck if you come here and want my autograph or not. I'm better than you, and you know it. I mean, that was that's a great tagline. And I put the kid over because I love him. But he says, you have to appreciate MJF's commitment to being MJF. My buddy and I finally get up to the front and we say, bro, we love your shit. Now, my buddy's drinking a coffee at the time. MJF grabbed his cup, took it, spit in it, gave it back to my buddy and said, so what the fuck do you two want? I mean, what a roar, But that's him, man. He is committed to the character. So I don't know how we got up to that. I could talk about MJF for hours.
Man, DDP is just awesome. Honored to have him with us for episode number 500. Honored to have you with us for episode number 500. And honored to have Mudwater sponsoring episode number 500. So what is Mudwater? No, I'm not actually drinking mud in my great mustaches mug here. Some really good mustaches there. It's not actually mud. This is a coffee alternative. So like all of the great energy that you would get from coffee, but without the jitters and without the crash of coffee. It's made with 4 adaptogenic mushrooms and all kinds of different herbs and other great ingredients that you see there on the side of the can. This for me is my go-to drink. This is like the mid-morning or like mid-afternoon when you're like, I could really use a little bit of a boost of energy here. So you just grab yourself some mud water and, well, that is actually quite hot. I probably should have waited till I had a sip of that. I just love the taste of this. And I love how it's just a steady stream of energy without the like, you know what I'm talking about here. Check out mudwater.com/CVV to get 15% off your order of Mudwater. That's MUDWTR.com/CVV, or use the code CVV to get 15% off your first order of Mudwater.
I feel like there's no coincidences in life, and the way that we met, it still blows my mind to this day when I think about it, or when we talk about it. You were done Rogan that day, right?
Rogan.
So you're on this massive high. We're both in LA. Neither of us live in LA. Right. I think that's the start of the story. I check into my hotel. This is from my perspective. I was there to interview the cast of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right.
So I'd just flown into LA. I was checking into my hotel. I'm unpacking my suitcase, and all of a sudden I hear someone trying to break into my hotel room. The door, they're trying the door. This thing won't work.
So let me go to mine. It got me to that moment. My buddy Josh, who is, everybody's pretty much has learned now knows today who Nita Strauss is. I mean, she's one of the greatest guitar players. She's played with, the bigs, Alice Cooper. She has her own band. My buddy Josh is her fiance. He also is her manager. And just a phenomenal guy. And he's a good buddy of mine. I come out to LA. Every time he comes to Atlanta, we try to hook up. So I said, hey, you want to go to do Rogan? So come to see Rogan with me. He's like, absolutely. So he had those shirts, and you might remember them. This one was Ego Kills Talent. That was the shirt I was wearing that he gave me, and I loved that shirt because I don't think there's a truer statement than that. And I get to the show, and Rogan goes, I love that shirt, which gave Josh a big boost for his T-shirts, which I loved. And me and Rogan were having a couple cocktails, So, and when that interview was like 2.5 hours, and we were he got to the end of it, he goes, is there anything else you want to talk about? I go, I can't believe it, but I'm kind of talked out. So I was so pumped, got in the car, and we drive there, and I got to go to the bathroom. Bad. I get out of the car, give him a hug, boom, run inside, put my stuff down. There's that piano that was there, right?
In the lobby of the hotel.
Right there. Yeah. I put everything down on that, and I go, oh, God, my wallet. Oh, God, now there's a guy who's got a camera, and he's talking to his kid. He's like, and I can hear him, he goes, oh, my God, look behind me. It's DDP, Diamond Dallas Pages back there. I'm like, and I got to go to the bathroom so bad. So friggin', I go, oh, God, I got to call Josh, see if I left it in the car. I call him up. He goes, I just found your wallet. It must have slipped out when you got out. He zooms around. The guy walks up. Is there any way you'll just say hello to my kid? I go to the bathroom so bad. Of course I will, bro. Hey, buddy. Blah, 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 blah. I grab my stuff, and it's all like my wallet, whatever I had, my jacket and everything was all, it wasn't like put together. It was, I was running chaos. I get to the elevator. I push my floor. That I think is my floor. I friggin' run out of the elevator. I go to the door, and I'm pushing the thing in front of it. No. And you open the door.
And that's all I hear from the other side. I'm like, what is going on here? So I'm like, they'll figure it out. They'll figure out they're in the wrong room. And then it just keeps getting worse. Oh, fuck it. I can't believe this. So I go over and I look through the people, and I'm like, is that DDP? And by the way, we've never met each other in person at this point.
Right.
So I open up the door and I go, hey, you're in the wrong room, but I'm a big wrestling fan.
Dude, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry. You go, but I'm a big wrestling fan. And I go, can I use your bathroom?
Like, yeah, come on in. Bro, I got to go pee so bad. So you go in and you take the world's longest pee, and you've just thrown all your luggage in like the entry area of my hotel. And I'm sitting there going, is this actually happening? Like, DDP is in my hotel. So I'm like, I'd love to ask if he'll do an interview. So when you come out, I go, I actually do a lot of interviews. I've interviewed The Rock and Batista.
And I know I cut you off. I go, bro, wait a second. I can't find my phone. I can't find my fucking phone. Where the hell's my phone? I go, can I leave my shit here? You go, yeah. I go, I'll be back. So I go downstairs, and They know me in this hotel. It's in Century City, and I'm like, Barry, did you find it? Anybody find a wallet or whatever? I mean, my phone. Did anybody find my phone? So I've lost my phone and my wallet within freaking 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. So I can't. No. Looking around, and this guy walks up and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "Did you lose a phone?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, he took a picture of it. He goes, "I gave it over there. They got it over at the front desk." I said, "I was just over at the front desk." Finally, I get my my phone. I go upstairs, and then I go, "So what were you saying about an interview?"
And it's funny because I think I was in room, 618, and you were in 518.
Right.
So you just got off at the wrong floor, the other way
off
around.
the wrong floor. It was the same thing.
And I was like, yeah, so I interview a bunch of celebrities. I'm actually in town to interview the cast of Bohemian Rhapsody. And you're like, "Let's do it right now." I'm like, what do you mean? You're like, "Let's do it right now, bro." And I'm like right now,
right now, like we're here. Let's do it.
Okay, and this is the funny thing. I never travel with my camera gear, but after that trip, I was going to land in Fort Lauderdale and then immediately interview the Bucks, right from the airport. It was the only reason I had my gear with me. And I was like, this is perfect. I actually have my stuff with me. So I called my buddy Jake and I was like, "Hey, are you free?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll be right there." And I'm like, I can't believe the timing of this. I can't believe that you're at my room. And then we sat down and did an impromptu 45-minute interview like that.
Well, I just got done doing Rogan, man. So I was so pumped up because he is the guy you hear is the real guy.
Sure. That's why he's so good.
It's why he's so good. He's just friggin', and he knows really a lot about a lot of things.
He's very well read.
Yeah, very well read.
But fast forward now, 5 years later, I'm so incredibly grateful to be able to call you a friend and to be able to, give you a call whenever anything's going on in my life. And I just want to thank you for being the person that you are.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, man. Just doing me.
But it's amazing that a chance meeting of you trying to break into my hotel room has led us all here.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, man. And now you can see I'm wearing a Power Cuff shirt. That's my new thing right now. We're just releasing it. It literally has been, it's really been over 3.5 years in the making. And my buddy and partner, Chet Paulson, who has the patented, blood flow restriction straps. And together we tweaked them into this really, I think, the best version of BFR, blood flow restriction training, and you've done the workouts, so you know. And you promised me when you got done with your ab routine for your 40th that you'd give me 90 days.
I'm in now.
So
Let's do it.
Because the whole thing about blood flow, and when you're wearing the cuffs, what I call power cuffs, it's multiple reps. So because you've done this, but you're doing 30 reps
with super lightweight.
Yeah. Could you normally with dumbbells back in the day, I was slinging between 40 and 65 pounds with dumbbells.
Damn.
That's what I was jacked, But after retirement, I was about 45 pounds. I never really even went over 45. 15 pounds is heavy.
Yeah.
When you're doing it like this, and the way the blood flow, the way it works is if your heart, is pumping blood through arteries and it comes back through veins. So think of it, if I put a cup around this arm, when the arteries are pumping the blood, think of the arteries as PVC piping. Think of the veins as garden hose. If we step on a garden hose, water's going to still come. It's going to trickle out, though. On the PVC, nothing's going to get touched. So it's constantly pumping blood into your arms and kind of restricting it there. It's still going through, but it's trickling through. And that's why when you get to that first 10 reps, if you're doing 30 reps, the first 10, this is easy. I should have gone heavier.
Yeah.
Get to 20, you're like, wow, it's starting to get heavier. You get to 24, you're like, oh man, this is is this really 10 pounds? Now I'm doing 20 pounds. I've built up from 10 to 20. I'll never go over 20, ever. And a lot of times, that's the first set of the 30, where you do 30, 20, well, really 30, 15 reps, 15 reps with 30-second break in between. I work with Tony Freeman now, who's the X-Man, Olympia top 5. There's thing second last year or year right before he retired. But Tony is blown away by this guy's lifted 500 pounds on the bench. He's, slung fucking 80-pound dumbbells and curls, and he's doing the same weight I'm doing, man. And it's the workout. I mean, the density of that muscle. And when you get older, when this is really tailor-made for guys in their 40s on up, because you're going to get that same pump. If you were an athlete and you're beat up and now you can't lift the heavy weight anymore, this is that same pump you used to get, but better.
And so much better for your joints, I guess.
Way better, man. And it works your whole body. So that's been, if anybody's more interested in what I'm doing, I'm not going to get long about this, but powercuffs.com, they're now up there. You can, the science, like, let's just take a piece of the science, because this isn't like DDP invented this, not at all. A guy, I want to say Dr. Katsu, I could be wrong about the name exactly, Japanese doctor 65 years ago, developed it for rehab, for the legs and for the arms, but not just the arms. When Cody tore his pec, he used blood flow. He didn't even know that I had these at the time. By the time he had healed, he'd been using just a pull strap, which is really not safe. When he saw that what I was doing, he goes, God, I want a pair. And I pulled out a pair with his logo on it. And he popped. But it's just a safer way to train. When Dr. Katsu, he developed it for people to do in rehab. And Birmingham, like if someone, Triple H tears his quad, or Roman Reigns does something to his shoulder, whatever it is, and they need surgery, they do not pass go. They go right to Birmingham, Alabama, Dr. Andrews. Dr. Andrews' head of PT is a guy named Kevin Wilkes. He uses our stuff to heal the bodies. And what they do, after they've got them doing whatever their rehab is, then they start moving off. And I remember he was telling me to Triple H, and I haven't talked to him about this yet, that when he was using the cuffs, he was like, God, I want these. I want some of my own. Ours aren't the clinical ones. They're still selling, Rock Cuffs still selling those ones to clinical, but they're also making the ones for power cuffs. And they're made like right to your body.
With everything you talk about here with DDPY, power cuffs, and everything else going on, you are one of the rare pro wrestlers who's been more successful after wrestling. And the other ones that immediately pop into everyone's mind, of course, is The Rock, Dave Bautista. But
those two guys have done okay.
Yeah, they're okay. Okay. But so many wrestlers get caught in this identity. And I think that's probably a big part of it. If I'm a pro wrestler.
It's hard, but it's hard, though. To be fair to every guy, you got to remember, starting at 35 as a wrestler, and I started at 31 and a half as manager, color commentator, just trying to get noticed, I'd already had a really broad scope. I had Page's Painters. I'd been running nightclubs for...
You had a painting business?
And when I started working with a guy named Pat Kane when I was a kid. And back then, a lot of smoking pot. And Pat had a gazebo behind his parents' house. And I'd come and wake him up in the morning. And he'd go, light up a joint. We'll go in an hour. And that could turn into 2 hours. But eventually, we'd get to work. And, he was a very handsome, very charismatic guy. And he taught me basically how to paint. And he had a whole crew of guys. Sometimes they'd start at 12 o'clock, but they got to work. But I learned a lot from him. And one day I thought I could do this. And I just decided to do Page's Painters. And I'm still working in the nightclub at night and doing Page's Painters during the day. And then my nightclub career got bigger and bigger, and I didn't need to do any of that. But I still knew how to paint. And I knew how to have my own business. That's the point.
Yeah, you were very entrepreneurial before it was even cool to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I didn't want to work for anybody. I didn't want my last real job. I only had one job that I did for a half a day. I don't consider anything I did working because I love painting. Yeah. I love being with my boys. And that was the closest I came to what I would call a real job. I remember doing these clam factory. I lived on the shore, on the ocean, you know. I lived a mile off the ocean in this little town called Point Pleasant, New Jersey. And they would crush up the clams roasted. It was the worst smell ever. Like, I left for lunch. I never came back, never went back. And back then, $1.65 an hour was a lot of money. We're talking about like 1970, you know, or somewhere around there. But I've always wanted to do things that I love doing. Then I never feel like I'm working. Do you ever feel like you're working?
Not anymore. And I've had some pretty not great jobs before I got into broadcasting. Like there was one where I was doing like door-to-door vacuum sales.
Yeah, that's the worst.
That was awful. I quit halfway through that day.
Dude, I actually did that same thing. And that was trying, like, okay, there's sales, you know, because you could sell, you know, ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah.
I ain't selling people shit. I'm really great at being passionate about what I'm doing.
Sure, if you believe it, then other people will believe it.
Right, man. Yeah. We talked about this last night. The people who say, I'll believe it when I see it, those people don't see shit. Ever. But the people who say, I believe it because I see it, they're the game changers. They're the people who think outside the box. They're the people who make shit happen. And like for me, when I said I was going to get in wrestling, my buddies thought I was out of my mind. And then it happened. And then at some point, I said I'm going to be a wrestler only because they took the managing away from me. Because as Magnum said, the hair, the clothes, the bling, the rap, the dolls, it's like you're taking too much attention away from the boys, and they got to draw the money. And to his credit, of course, Scott Hall, the late, great Scott Hall, had said to me, Dally, you're too much. It's too over the top. You got to be a little more sedated. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? You know exactly what he was talking about. Yeah. But that's what forced me at 35 and a half to say, I'm going to be a wrestler.
And your name comes up all the time, especially recently, you know, like LA Knight's 40, and there was talk of like, maybe he's too old to do this.
That guy, he ain't too old for nothing. Yeah. He is at the right time, at the right place, and I pray for him that they see it because he deserves it. I remember walking up to him, I want to say it was Mania this year, and I said, dude, I just want you to know, I personally love what you're doing. And from watching you from NXT coming up and, you know, him working with Bronson, who's one of my boys. I mean, he's worked out in that gym with me 50 times. And, you know, I'm like, I love what you're doing. I said, and I said the same thing to Sammy, that it's your time, dude. Like, these people are going to get with you. It's going to get bigger and bigger. And it did. You know, both of those guys are like, they're top guys to me. Yeah. Like they are top of the top with that. Just give them that little push. Give them that little push, and they both will deliver.
But whether it's wrestling or it's anything else in life, a lot of people get this mentality of like, man, I'm too old.
Yeah.
I'm too old. I love to bring up your story to people because 35, especially in pro wrestling, that does feel really old.
No, it really does. And if I didn't have all of the time put in, like you have to remember, when I was working Florida Championship Wrestling, which I drove 137 miles up and 137 miles back to Fort Myers to be with Dusty Rhodes. You have to remember, my two mentors, Dusty Rhodes, Jake the Snake.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, brother mentors. Yeah. Like when Dusty passed, and this joke's about to talk about it, but Cody had called me. I was in the airport, remember exactly where I was, and he said, Dusty said he wanted you to know he had 5 friends, and he could count them on his fingers. And he had told me this story before, but Cody put another level to it. He said some of those 5 friends, from time to time, would fall off, and they'd find their way back up on the hand again. And he said, Dallas never fell off that hand. That was coming from Cody. It was super cool. But you know, I had those guys in my ear. Without them, I couldn't have done it.
What do you say to someone who might be 35 and there's something they've always wanted to do in life and they hate going to work every single day and they want to chase after that, but I think the biggest thing is they're scared to chase after? What do you say to them?
I don't say anything to them unless they ask. You know, like, what do you think about me? You know, going for it.
Well, let's say they're asking right now.
Okay, 35 is I don't really have people at that age. Say 32, 30, somewhere around there, and I will say to them, if you can't breathe without it, you should do it. But if you can, I would forget about it. Because, dude, you have no idea how hard it is. Think about how many, today, with all the independent wrestling that there's so much.
Yes.
And thank God there are so many really places from AEW to, to Impact.
Yeah, New Japan, MLW.
There's so many places that the boys can get gigs now and make a living.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a good time. And I'll say to the young kid, who I know he's 160 pounds, well, that was plenty of guys who started from Edge to friggin' the Hardys. Yeah. They were all that and still out there wrestling. But those guys, and the reason they ended up here, they couldn't breathe without it. Like you gotta want it so bad. Your work ethic has to be at a different level. You have to work 5 times harder than anybody just to get noticed. And being Bischoff's buddy, that was a really strong relationship. Really strong. Still is today. When we get together, we're right back where we were, But we don't see each other that much like we used to. But he also wasn't going to do the nepotism card. He wasn't going to push me because he was his buddy. So he went, and he said it when he inducted me. He said I had to work twice as hard. No, I had to work 5 times as hard. And they have to understand, and if they're a kid coming up, like there's Dylan. Have you met Dylan yet?
Yes.
Dylan, great. It's freaking great. He has a Southern Honor Wrestling here in Georgia. He is a kid who was 5'6", and now he let himself got big again only because he wants to be that big wrestler in there, and he's 300 pounds, and but he's the booker. He runs he brings the people in the show. Him and Nathan, one of his other partners, who also works for me. These guys are editors and filmographers, and like their show is as good as any independent show out there. But they're not doing it to get in WWE. Not trying to get in AEW. They just want to live a dream and be a wrestler. Yeah. So if that's your dream, you should go for it. But if you're thinking, I gotta be in WWE, well, that's as hard as it gets. Now, is it possible? Absolutely.
Sure.
And you have to also if you look back, like Edge did jobs. The Hardys did jobs. You don't remember them that because they weren't featured. Yeah. There was some guy who went out there and got beat. And there's guys that have done that for them. Yeah. But look at the stars. Like I love listening to Edge is one of my favorite people in this business. And when he was telling me stories about him and Christian and driving 600 miles across Alberta, wherever they were in Canada, and then sleeping on the floor where the ring is at. That's an ice rink. Think how cold that is. Yeah. Those guys paid their dues at a different level, and there's kids out today doing exactly that.
Yeah. A lot of people point to you at 35 and a half deciding to be a wrestler. On the other end of your career, what do you think it was that's led you to everything you're doing now with DDPY?
Without wrestling, without having that fan base, I have some amazing people who are fans, and it's so funny. The ones who really put the work in end up becoming friends because I respect what work they put into themselves. Like my buddy, Dr. Tom Wallen, who was a huge fan of mine as a kid and started to do the program and went through a transformation doing DDPyoga. Now he's the head of my BFR blood flow restriction program that we're putting together with Power Cuffs. He's a doctor. He's a scientist and he's a doctor. He's a level 2 DDPY instructor. He's a transformation coach instructor, along with being a doctor and the head of my BFR. And he stayed up here because we were filming some stuff for the Power Cups.
Yeah.
Because I want the doctor's side,
Sure,
of what this is all about. And he's gone through all the courses for blood flow restriction and everything. So we're getting ready to go over and film. And he stayed over the night before like you did. And like I did for you, I'm making breakfast. And as I'm walking over with the plates, he goes, I'm having a little flashback here of my 12-year-old self. DDP's making me breakfast. But, without the fan base, without that, because in the beginning, anybody who pretty much got it, it was pretty much wrestling fans.
Yeah, believe it.
And
What's it
then
now?
Arthur's video came out,
yeah.
and that changed the entire skew.
So what do you think the percentage is now?
I think it's probably about 55% wrestling fans and 45%
That have never seen a DDP match.
never. But when something next goes viral, like we have, and me and you have talked about this, and now I can really talk about it because it's going to be coming out at some point, with probably around the first of the year, I'm guessing. Our show that it's a docu-series that we filmed called Change or Die. And we brought 5 people into one of my other homes that I kept when I got this one. And I was just renting it out. And then Steve said, we need a house, and everything is so expensive in Smyrna, where the company is. He's like, do you think you'd take that off the market and let us use that? And I said, well, you're in luck, man, because they're at the last month. They want to renew, but I can tell them, might have to give them a couple of months, just to get, so they get out comfortably. And that's what happened. And then we brought these 5 different people into where the resurrection of Jake the Snake was filmed, into the accountability crib. And these people go on this journey, and we film everything.
Wasn't Buff Bagwell one of them?
He was one of them. That's why you see Marcus, I don't even call him Buff, because the character Buff today is good, but when he would flip into Buff, he'd become an asshole because he's an addict. And he didn't think he was an addict then. So that's another guy that is kind of like going through what we're doing. And then it was like, you have to see it. I don't want to spoil it, but you can look at Marcus when he walked in our house and who he is today. And he's completely different person.
He's coming up on close to a year of being sober.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's super. I mean, I can't believe how many guys and women who do my program that has helped them with their sobriety, which is fascinating to me.
But think of how many people that we as wrestling fans can thank for their health now, or the fact that they're still around now because of you.
Because of my team and I. It's not just, everybody thinks it's me, and I always say to them, man, it takes a village. I mean, it took every single person. Like Jake, I look at Jake today, and I couldn't be more proud, happier, because my whole goal when we started filming The Resurrection of Jake the Snake, which is on Amazon Prime, by the way, and our other documentaries, Relentless. You might want to check that out. But when we started filming, we'd never done documentary before. Like Steve, you and I, he's my partner, my business partner. We are the guys who figure it out. I will hire a person who knows nothing about our business before I'll hire a person who knows a lot about it. I'll hire the person who doesn't know a lot if they're a figure it out person. I'll figure it out. And because that's what we are. We're going to figure it out. I remember I was in Iraq one time. I went there like 3 different separate occasions to see the troops for like 2 weeks, once to Afghanistan. But I was in Iraq, and it was the first tour I was on. And I was out because they didn't, me and Rob Dibble, who played for the Reds, and he was when the Reds won the World Series, he was the MVP. He was one of the pitchers. And we're out there, and out in the outer, like Fallujah, out in the outer, like where bad shit was happening. Yeah. And the colonel's like, well, DDP, you think you can drive a tank? I said, yes, I can. Now, how those tanks went, I don't know if they're all like this, but here's a tank. And then there's a middle part that's open.
Yeah.
And you slide your body in and you grab a hold of the steering wheel and the friggin' speed like this. And I could just, I'm still about 250 back then. I could just fit in there. And man.
And you figured out how to drive a tank.
Dude, I drove it like a madman.
Do you think that that's one of your greatest superpowers is being able to figure things out?
Yes. The 3 superpowers that I have and I own, I'll figure this shit out. Really, there's 4. I'll put the work in. I know how to breathe in every scenario. Everybody knows, calm down, breathe. But why? So again, I do a lot of inspirational speaking to corporations and stuff. I do them all the time. I turn down more than I do because I don't want to. I don't want to work too much like that. I love doing it and I want to stay current with it. But whatever I'm talking about, I want to be able to back it up. So I always talked about breathing because I know how valuable it is. I'm like, but why? Why does it calm you down? Why does it bring you down? And then I read, okay, this is right out of a medical journal. So I work this into my deal. And I'll say, take that deep breath. Hold on to it. Now let it go slowly, controlled. Take another deep breath, a mindful breath, like hold it. And then, you see, what happens when you're deep breathing is you activate the hypothalamus, which is connected to the pituitary gland in the brain. It calms you down and chills you out. When you're deep breathing, it is relieving stress and anxiety due to the physiological effect that deep breathing has on our nervous system. When you're deep breathing, you are turning on neurohormones, which are inhibiting stress-producing hormones, which causes a relaxation response in the body. That is directly out of a medical journal.
You know how many people listening or watching this right now have not taken a deep, mindful breath in months, maybe years, maybe ever?
Everybody pretty much breathes like this.
Yeah, shallow breathing.
And they never do this. And get all the air out. Mm-hmm. They never do that. Mm-hmm. I do it every day, all day. And when you own your breath, you are on your way to owning your life. And this will come back to what's my 4th superpower? Discipline. Discipline. I remember being Mike Tyson, and I watched it again on one of these channels that he's been on. He talks about a lot how his coach, Cus D'Amato, this 80-year-old white man, kid, you're going to hate discipline, but if you can learn to love it, if you can learn to love discipline, you'll be the heavyweight champion of the world. He would tell him that since he was 13, 14, 15, 16. And at 20 years old, he's the baddest man in the world.
Yeah.
Discipline. Now, unfortunately, Cus died right around that time. And then vultures can swoop in. So another interview where one guy said to Mike, I love Mike Tyson, man. He said, what was your happiest time? He said, when I was in the joint. And he went, really? He said, nobody could pull at me then. It gave him time to start recalculating.
Yeah.
And look at him today. I mean, he's a very successful businessman. He's doing very good. I saw him do his one-man show, 2 hours. He was unbelievable. I mean, funny. And friggin' Holyfield was right like 8 seats over from me. And he talked about all that. And him and Holyfield are tight now, you know, because they didn't want to hold on to that. They were two of the warriors of that time, you know. So then I'll say, like, so where do you find discipline? And according to Jocko, and if you're online, you know, a lot of people know who Jocko is. He said that discipline comes from telling yourself the truth. Telling yourself the truth about where you are right now at this particular time in your life. Now, a lot of people will lie to themselves and say, I don't need discipline. But that's bullshit. You see, when you can tell yourself the truth, that you know you can be better today than you were yesterday, you won't have to find discipline. Discipline will find you. And I thought, okay, I'm taking that whole piece right there. Just like Jocko said it, because I said, that's amazing. And then I came up with some of my own stuff. Like, discipline is making yourself have the ability to do what you know you need to do, when you need to do it, whether you feel like doing it or not. Discipline is the truest form of self-love. Ignoring the current pleasure for the bigger reward to come. When you can own discipline, and I do, man, it's a mega superpower.
I've known you for years, and there's actually some wrestling questions I've always wanted to ask you, but I've never asked you.
Sure.
How did you not get sued by Nirvana for your entrance theme?
You know, that's fascinating because I went to see Jimmy Hart. First, let's go back to where it comes from.
Okay.
Jimmy Hart was a musical genius. You know, he had a number one hit at one time with the Gentrys. Did you know that?
I don't think people realize how like musically inclined he is.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Again, number one hit.
Yeah.
So what? It was a one-hit wonder. He was number one when it meant something, like when they got paid and shit. You know.
Yeah.
But I went down to Florida. And he said, so what music do you like? I said, right now I'm listening to Nirvana. I really like them. I think they're the sound of the 90s. And he goes, which song do you like? And it was between Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I can't remember the other name of the other one, but it was between the both of them. And I said, let's pick Smells Like Teen Spirit. And then he did something with the music. And I go, that sounds amazing. It sounds just like it. He goes, all I did was flip the beat. So instead of going boom, 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 it went boom, 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 boom. So if you notice, if you played them both at the same time, you'd hear the difference.
I think it's like the chords are reversed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But when you hear it, everybody knows what it's supposed to sound like.
Dude, I tell you, I was so bummed out when the WWE changed my music. And on all the WCW stuff, all the Peacock stuff, they changed the music because they didn't want to get sued.
Yeah.
And then I also found out that it wasn't David Grohl who owned it. It was Courtney.
Oh, wow. Courtney
Yeah,
Love.
she probably wasn't even aware I was using it.
She probably has a lot more other things to be worried about.
Yeah, so that's your answer to that question.
So
Well, let me share one other thing with you.
Yeah.
Do you remember when I did the angle with Raven and I was on MTV?
Of course, yeah.
David Grohl is sitting right next to me and his drummer. And when Raven hit me...
Wait, Dave Grohl was the drummer in
Nirvana,
Nirvana.
right.
Kurt Cobain.
Yeah. No.
Oh.
This is when he had his own band.
Oh, Foo Fighters.
Yes.
Okay.
And he's the guitar player.
So he's the guitar player in that, yeah.
Yeah. So he's sitting next to his drummer, and they just did a piece with Carson Daly. And now I'm out there, and we got the whole thing, and only people who know this is going to happen are me and Carson, and, of course, Raven. And at some point when the Raven comes on the TV and takes over and cuts his little promo, and then I say whatever I'm going to say, and Raven comes behind me. Now, we know stop signs are this big and this big. This one, you get hit in the head with it, not a big deal. This one, I didn't realize it till he hit me. But that motherfucker, that hurts like you stole something. And, man, he hit me with that thing. DDT'd me. I mean, those guys jumped up. They scared me.
They have no clue what's going on.
No idea. If you get ever a chance to see it, It is like Dave jump like 10 feet, but understandable. I would have too, if I didn't know. But I love Dave Grohl, man. You're talking about a guy who's a friggin' rock star at a different level, man. How many people have mega fucking bands? 2 of them. Mm-hmm. There's a handful of guys who've done it.
Yeah.
Tom Petty did it. There's a bunch of, top, but mega stars.
You want to talk about someone who's on another level. We were talking about him last night, but how impressed are you with Logan Paul?
Oh, my God. And I'm not told this story since I told the other story back when I first met him. Not this Mania, it was the Mania before.
So Dallas.
And he walked into the elevator. Yeah. I was like, hey, man. Friggin', boom, Dallas Page. He goes, oh, good to meet you. I said, man, I got to tell you, I'm blown away by just what you've done so far, but keep up the great work. You want to get a picture? He's like, yeah, sure. And I go to put the diamond cutter sign up, and he goes, I can't do that. And I go, you can't do that. He goes, well, it's a gang sign. I go, it's really not. I figure, I'm not going to debate this. So I put it down. And then later I talked about it when I was doing the podcast with Jake. Yeah. And it kind of took off on the internet, So now it's Mania in LA. And I'm on the elevator, and who walks in? Logan Paul walks in, and I go, hey, bro. I go, we got to stop meeting like this. And he goes, oh, my God. I'm so sorry. I'm a legend. He was so apologetic. I said, can we take a picture now at a time? Because absolutely.
He's okay with the gang signs now.
Right. Well, not a gang sign, as you know. But the bottom line is just the nicest guy. And I watch him in that ring. I heard you had said it to me that Triple H had said he has no business being that good. Yeah. But he is such an amazing athlete and entertainer and like daredevil. Like when I saw him and Ricochet, who was one of my boys, man, when I saw that.
At the Royal Rumble?
Yeah, that deal where they did the flying belly to belly, I don't know what you even call that, crossbody in midair. Like there's so much room for failure that you have to perform at this level to do shit like that. And Ricochet is used to doing it all the time. He's, of course, a thoroughbred. So is friggin' Logan Paul. And then he can do it the way he's doing it and know how to be the heel.
He's like 5 matches in. And
ridiculous.
And we can already talk about these incredible moments that we'll be talking about, I think, for years. Like the frog splash off the top rope through the announce table, holding the cell phone. He did a Spanish fly with Ricochet at Money in the Bank, which was insane. Of course, the Rumble spot. And now, as we sit here, they're going to meet at SummerSlam.
I'm not going to miss that match because that match has the potential to be like stealing the show match.
Well, I've been saying this so much, but it makes so much sense that Logan Paul's like the new Shane McMahon. How he may not win the match, but he's going to do something in that match that's going to make you go, oh my God, how is this possible?
And that's all they're going to remember. No one's going to remember who wins or loses. And that's the beauty of wrestling. If you're a top guy, you can go out there and lose. If you can go out there, I mean, if you really look back, how many times The Rock, Jake, Scott Hall, Diamond Dallas Page, how many times we lost?
I'll give you one.
It's a lot.
I'll do you one better. Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels has his win-loss record at WrestleMania is terrible.
But no one remembers that.
Of course.
Because he stole the show. Yep. If he's on the card, he's still on the show. And that's his only goal, to go out there and just take it away from everybody.
What do you think your life would look like if WCW had continued being successful into the 2000s?
I don't think it would be this. I might have, because sometimes we have to get back on a track and end up back in our destiny. But I don't know. I don't know if it's the same if we do the People's Champion versus People's Champion. I don't know if it's the same if we do that.
How close were you to getting Rock versus DDP?
Well, it was in my mind 2 years before it happened. I went to go see the show, Big Show, and he was a champ back then. And Pat Patterson was on the same flight I was on. You have to understand, when I was in the AWA, I got to know through my buddy Lee Marshall, Classy Freddie Blassie, who was, him and Captain Lou were my favorite guys, as far as entertainers on the show. And I love Freddie. And Lee Marshall put me together with him. And, Freddie was a god till the day he died up there. And I sent him my tape. And he brought it in for Pat Patterson to see. And Pat was like, kid's got it. He's got something. But he's like Andre the Giant as a manager. Because I towered over everybody, and that killed me right there, being a manager in WWE. Pat, when Hogan was working with Warrior, I'm working for Florida Championship Wrestling as a color commentator and a manager. And I was up there that day, one of those days they were there, and they had just driven off. And Pat was still there. And he basically told me, you're just too big. So Pat and I had talked. And then the Cadillac, driving a pink Cadillac, my boy Luke from the Bushwhackers, you've seen pictures of him at my club and shit. And back in those days, and he's like, the Diamond, the Cadillac, think Honky Tonk Man, and Jimmy Hart, and Hammer, they do the rhythm and blues thing. There's a Cadillac. I was like, that would be cool. So he calls Pat, puts me on the phone with Pat, and Pat says, how much? I said, well, if you'll ship it up there, because it is a 62 pink, Cadillac, and this was 90, 80, it's 90, whatever. Whenever Warrior and Hogan were facing off in Montreal, in that same building, not Montreal, in the Toronto, the Blue Jays play.
Rogers Center, or it's Skydome. Rogers Center now.
So you drive it up there, and you let me drive it and put me up, I'll give it to you for nothing. That's how the car got the gig, not me. But again, it got in the form more relationships over that and meeting people. What a lot of people don't understand is it's not about clicks. It's about relationships. And clicks can come out of that, and get super group of tight guys together. But you build all those relationships. So you got to remember, when I first started, going from being a wrestling manager to a wrestler, the guys I was hanging with was Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kevin Nash, Scotty the Body, but later Raven, Scott Hall, Eric Bischoff, was from AWA. Dusty, Jake. These are the people that I'm hanging with and building relationships. And what happened? Almost all those guys, like Raven, should have been, I brought him to the main event plenty of times. And if they would have if Goldberg didn't get hot right then, when we were doing the trading, when it trades the U.S. title back and forth, it would have moved Scotty to that spot he deserved to be in. Because I'll tell you, man, Scotty, I just got to call him Raven. Raven has one of the best minds for the business, and he proved it up there working with one of the other best minds for the business, Paul Heyman.
What do you remember from that superplex with Hardcore Holly that really effectively ended your WWE run?
Right. I remember because, Bobby works super stiff, and that's where he got the name Hardcore Holly. And I lit him up in the corner with some punches, threw him in a turnbuckle, and I can judge your foot. I can make it look like it ripped my head off, but you got to hold it there. And Bobby would later apologize because he, last second, caught me, and my neck only moves so far, even back then. And when it hit me, boom, it kind of staggered me. Now, when he would come through with a clothesline, I would always be gone. Like, I'm not going to be there to take that hit. But I was knocked a little silly, and my timing was off. So when he hit me, it apparently friggin' like jackknifed my neck, like whiplash type thing. And by the time I hit the mat, I'm like, okay, I have no idea where I am.
So it wasn't the superplex?
What? No. That'll tell you what happens on superplex. This is what led up to it.
Oh.
So I have no idea where I am now. This isn't the first concussion I've had.
Sure.
You know, and the one thing you learn, you know, if you're in a match, look for a red light. Now, if there's a red light, that means we're on TV. If we're on TV, we have a time limit. If it's not TV, I would have said, throw me to the floor. You knocked me out. Let the cobwebs. Okay, where the fuck am I? Yeah. You know, but it's a red light. So Bobby goes to slam me. I go, dude, you knocked me out. What's next? He goes, going off the top rope. Stop me. And I remember, I'm going to suplex him off the top. So he goes to climb up, and I've never seen anybody do this before. I've seen people do it after me. But instead of just running over and hitting the guy's legs, that's stupid to me, I would dive on the rope, which makes it wiggle, and he nutshots himself. So we get that pop. Then I come over to him, and I hit him a couple times, and I'm going to go up the second rope. I'm going to go up the third rope, and I went, maybe not. Yeah, I want to make sure I get him flat. So I'll go for 1 foot on the second, one on the third. We come back. I was so focused, hyper-focused on getting him flat that I didn't think about myself. And you're supposed to hit your whole body and whole body, so you absorb the impact together. And then it's not as stiff.
Yeah.
Still stiff, but it's not as stiff. I landed on top of my shoulders.
Yeah.
When I landed on top of my shoulders, my body jackknifed. And I hear him go, oh. And I'm on my neck, oh. And I'm thinking, what's he bitching about? Freaking, you know, like I know I landed flat, but now I'm like my fingers and my toes.
Yeah, you're favoring your arm as soon as you go down.
Yeah, but I feel like, oh my God. So the first thing you want to do is, can I still move my toes and hands? You know, because if you can't.
Yeah, you're paralyzed.
Yeah, and that could go away.
Yeah.
But I felt the shock hit him. Like I'll do this sometimes. I go, oh, fuck, what was that? It's just like a stinger. And it only lasts for a second, but I'm dying. I'm praying it never freaking just keeps going. But I realize, like, I'm hurt. Like, I'm hurt. And he goes, you okay? And I said, no, go home. And he was going to fucking catch me with something, and then I was going to fucking hit him with a diamond cutter. So I hit him with a diamond cutter, and I'll never forget. I went to throw my hand out, and I grabbed my neck, and I'm like, oh, God. So now we're backstage. And what you always do is you thank your boys, you know, for great match, man. Thanks for tonight. And when he's coming up to me, he hugs me, he goes, man, sorry about that boot. He goes, I know I caught you with a boot. I'm like, hey, fuck, it ain't checkers. You know? He goes, but I know I got you with that clothesline. And he's doing this with his arm. And you look like right here. And you see my jaw imprinted. He goes, I thought it tore my bicep. That's how hard he hit me.
Wow.
So he goes, but you got me back. I said, how did I get you back? He goes, when you jackknifed, your foot came around so fast and so hard, you hit me in the dick so hard, I thought my dick was on fire. And that's what everybody did, roared. But, you know, I probably, you know, when my spine guy, who first guy to make, when I blew my back out, broke my back, he's like, you're done. 3 months later, because of what would become DDPY, I went back to him. He's like, I've never seen this recovery ever. What did you do? And I told him, and I showed him, and he goes, don't stop doing that. You know, keep doing whatever the fuck you're doing. Well, now I go back about my neck. he's like, let me show you something. And he shows me how bad my neck is. And he said, if you would have, because he saw the bump. I showed him the bump. He's like, if you would have landed, you were so lucky. If you would have landed a little to the right, to the left, you'd be a quadriplegic right now. You need to be done.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I was never really happy with what they did with me there at all. The first time.
I feel like in WWE, if you were a WCW guy, they just didn't want you to be successful.
Well, I never took it personally. I did take it personally in the beginning. I shouldn't say never did. I did take it personally in the beginning, but I realized later it wasn't about me. It didn't matter. If Booker was the only guy there, it would have been him. If any other guy would have come in who was the top guy, it would have been them. They wanted it to be me because I was one of the biggest faces. I was the only guy besides Goldberg that WCW ever made.
Yeah.
Like at that level.
Yeah.
And they wanted it to be that character.
It's funny, in hindsight, thinking back about WCW, Rey Mysterio doesn't feel like a WCW guy.
You know what? Rey's AAA,
Yep.
WCW, and WWE, but he's really WWE.
He's 20 years in WWE.
Which is ridiculous that you even say, but 20 years on top. Maybe not tip-top at the top, but there were times where he's been tip-top at the top.
Yeah.
One of the greatest performers of all time. It's fat. Like, I watched Rey Mysterio do one of those things where he went out of the ring and flew down and landed on guardrails. Like, how are you not torn your ACLs out? How can you still walk? But he can.
Yeah, that guy, he's very mobile still.
I
For
love
the stuff
the
that
guy,
he's
man.
done.
And speaking of him, you got to put, I said this 6 months ago or 5 months ago, whatever it was. I said, if I was booking, I would put Dominik over every time he went to the ring. Just because the heat is so amazing. The heat he's got. And you talk about a kid who's been thrown in the middle of the fire. Like, not like, you can learn to swim. You're getting thrown in the middle of fire water. And I think he's done an unbelievable job. Considering when he's not on the road, he's like what I did. Go back to the power plant. He's going back to the performance center.
He's got some big shoes to fill.
Well, I think that I don't think it's about him filling the shoes, because Rey Mysterio, there's one. It's like there's Dusty Rhodes. One. Now you could say Cody or Dusty have big shoes to fill, but no, they did their own thing. So I really don't think that's a case with him. But I think he could have a hell of a career. As long as he takes care of his body. I think the kid's just going to get better and better, and the heat that he has is crazy.
How you speak to Cody like every day, right?
No, God, no. I might talk to him every week or so, a couple weeks. Sometimes it's a month we won't talk.
Can you believe the crowd reaction when he comes out now with the wow?
I think that it's when you can get the fans involved like that, they feel like they're a part of what you're doing.
Yeah.
For me, it was a diamond cutter sign.
Yeah.
Without the diamond cutter sign, I never get the push I got, because the booking committee never saw it. They never saw it. When Scott, I listened to Kevin Sullivan, who I love. There was times though, when we were, oh God, but I love him. We all let all that bullshit go, but there was times where, I was listening to one of his podcasts, what he did on me, which I thought was really good, and he talked about Kevin wanting to do this, to be dropped by me, and it was he thought it was Kevin's idea, and I told everybody, this is not my idea, because I don't want it to be, I want Kevin, it's your idea. And Kev, he made it happen. Him and Scott both did. It never would have happened without Kevin and Scott, and I'm deeply indebted to both those cats for that.
So I've got two more questions, and then we're gonna go work out. And you're gonna put me through the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Again, who's on your pro wrestling Mount Rushmore?
Oh, yeah. Of course, got to be Flair. Got to be Jake. I gotta have Dusty up there because it's mine. I just thought he was just unbelievable. And I'm gonna put the 5 guys. I'll put Hogan and Austin up there. Those fucking guys did a lot. Just monstrous for the business.
Yeah, like I feel like without the Hogan era, everything after that doesn't happen.
No.
Then without Austin, specifically Austin McMahon,
sure,
WCW probably wins the rating war.
Yeah. And without that, those are 2 major pivotal. Like Austin was in such a, and still is today. It was like he could go back there tomorrow and be the most important guy in the company.
Yeah.
And not do shit like he did with KO, outside the ring and stomping and bumping. And
he's still top 5 merch seller every month.
And dude, he's friggin' Austin. That's why he has to be on that Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
He has to be up there, And when we were on the road together in the beginning, because he don't drive with many people, he'll just do a. I can remember going to Chattanooga when he lived here in Texas, and I don't remember who I was driving with, but all I know, he just drove by me. And he made sure he was just enough in front of me to see him, and then he turned.
So I end every conversation with gratitude because it's such an important part of my life.
Sure.
And I want to say I'm super grateful for you and for our friendship and just for the person that you are. And I know that a lot of people acknowledge you, but I just want to sit here in front of you and acknowledge you for who you are. I love
thanks,
you, man.
I appreciate it, man, because attitude of gratitude is everything. And so many people have so many problems, but if you focus on the things that you have as opposed to you don't have, it does take a lot off, though, because I've been that person who's not doing that. When I was, I tell people wrestling was the best, most amazing thing I ever did, and it was the worst shit I was ever a part of. I mean, there's times I'm making over $1 million a year, and I'm like, fuck this job, I'm done, I'm out of here, because you get caught up in all that shit, as opposed to being focused on what you really have. And the spot that you're in. So, if everybody lived life with attitude of gratitude, we'd have a lot. People would be a lot happier.
What are 3 things today that you're grateful for?
My wife and kids, for sure. The opportunity to help people with what I'm doing and changing lives on a different level. And, I guess just friggin' God's gift of the sight of my superpowers, which are all that we talked about today: breathing and working out, work ethic and discipline, and like it's just repetition. The more you do something, the more you own it, and understanding that, and in my older age, patience. I'm much more patient. I'm not the most patient, but I'm getting better every day.
I think we can always be a little bit more patient. I certainly fall into that category.
Everyone does.
Thank you. It's so good to spend time with you. I love you, bro.
I love you too, buddy. Great time.